My name is Taylor O'More McClellan. I am known as the Monster. I'm a super heavyweight strongman and a resident of planet Earth, just like you. What was my childhood like? Interesting, to say the least. It was turbulent. There was a lot of, in and out of foster homes when I was a kid. That led into school being troubled, issues with bullies. I was chronically bullied my entire school life. I went through probably about 12 different foster homes. I was quite a violent kid. I was very implosive. I wasn't exactly like raging all the time. However, there's only so much an animal can take, a human being can take. And as a result, I would snap and I would hurt people. I'd put my head through windows just to stop the aggression, to stop that feeling. No child wants to feel like that. No child wants to feel like that. I had a lot of alcoholics, particularly my dad's side of the family, and I was exposed to that quite young. So, yeah, I started drinking recreationally when I was probably 12, 13 years old. Like, I'd have the occasional drink. I was around it a fair bit, and so drinking was sort of the norm. And as I sort of got to about sort of 15, 16, it was psychedelic mushrooms. And then 17 onwards was amphetamines, cocaine. It didn't matter what I got my hands on. I would take it just to escape reality. I had nowhere to project those different ways of thinking. So everything was just turbulent, just a melting pot, a washing machine of shit. And essentially, like me, as a person, it didn't matter who I was with as long as I could get my hands on something. And I would just push those limits until, I got a bit older and started having detrimental effects on my life around me. Ended up in the hospital ODing. My heart stopped several times, like clinically dead a few times or whatever on the way to the hospital, however many times it was. And when I got back to Australia, I was on night shift and I was alone in the gym on site and training again. I just had this moment, this little epiphany, for lack of a better term, where I basically dropped to my knees, started crying. I shouldn't be alive. I shouldn't be here. How am I here? I need to put everything into training because this is the one thing that's going to stop me. It's going to save my life. It was a turning point. It was the first time in my life that I felt like I was on the right path, but I still had a lot of fighting to do. And I found Strongman, and through that I began to push my body to limits I never thought possible. And I always wanted to do, like as a little kid, I remember seeing an Australian guy pull a plane, and the picture's in his Guinness World Record book, and I still remember the picture to this day. I was like, I can finally do it. I had to go through all of that other stuff to realize that this is the path that I need to be on. In 2020, I got to a position where I was very, very strong. I was nearly 400 pounds, 182 kilos. I was huge, and I let go of the vanity of how I looked and was just focused on performance. And because of that, I was approaching world level during lockdown. I was doing lifts that were being done around the world by top tier guys, and I started to realize that this really can happen. I can really turn this into a career. I did an online qualifier for official Strongman Games World Championships in Florida, Daytona Beach. Because of that, I had this drive that I'd never had before. Like, I can really do this. Only a few countries could go, so I got put onto 2022, which luckily enough, because in 2021, I ended up in hospital. Turns out my gallbladder was so big it was fused to my liver and leaking sludge. They did the surgery and left me with a bleed. That nearly killed me. I stopped breathing, both my lungs collapsed. I had to have fluid taken out of my lung cavity. The local anesthetic didn't work. I felt the needle go through my rib cage. Like, I went through all these crazy events where I was basically, I didn't know if I was gonna wake up. That's the truth. I was going to sleep, not knowing if I was gonna wake up. Sorry, this is a tough one. It just sucks when you have no control over something that is so detrimental to what you do. I'd already had 6 liters of blood drained, enough to kill a few adult men. But because I was so big and my bone marrow produced just enough red blood cells that kept me alive. So being big actually saved my life. My ex-wife had to move house, and the only place that we could get was in Lismore. Not even 9 months into our lease, the worst flood took everything we owned. I finally was able to go with my qualification to the 2022 games, and I ended up in hospital again a few months out with pancreatitis, and told basically if things don't change and I don't change the way I'm training, eating, everything, I will die. Pancreatitis, 33% of cases are for no particular reason, no traceable reason, and they can flare up at any time. And I was told if it flares up and goes bad, there's a high chance that I won't make it. And that really instilled fear in me. And I've never feared death, never truly feared it. And this, again, out of my control. If I'm in control of it, I feel like I'm comfortable. When I'm not in control of my own life, it starts to feel, you start to feel a bit fearful. So I put everything into that prep. I was finally able to go to Worlds. Terrible performance. Landed in the middle of a hurricane. First November hurricane since '85, as luck would go. And because of that, I then put everything into my next prep, which was for another comp in America, in the Midwest, in Missouri. I went over and did that. Performed worse than I would have liked. I blacked out in one of the events, injured my knee, still finished the competition. I think I placed 4th or 5th out of like 12 guys in a professional qualifier. So it was a pretty big comp. But still, because of everything from the last couple of years, I've been chasing myself to get back to that 2020 peak, and it's been the hardest thing I've ever had to do. So the last couple of years have been hell on earth. But I fear nothing. Not anymore. I fear nothing. How would I tell someone how to cope through those situations? Find something, a passion, anything, a pathway that gives you a sense of purpose. Because without a sense of purpose, you're never going to want to work on yourself or navigate from where you are. I would rather find a sense of purpose and hack away at that and deal with pain through that sense of purpose than to just sit there in pain, because at least I can distract myself. It doesn't have to be training, it doesn't have to be lifting, it could be drawing, it could be writing, it could be anything. But find a passion and find something that's worth suffering for, because we're going to suffer regardless. The difference between somebody who's ordinary and extraordinary is an ordinary person who never gave up. 90% of the day I'm Taylor. I want to be remembered as Taylor. A guy who just kept going, who kept fighting. Until my heart stops, my pupils dilate, and my breath becomes the wind. Until that moment, I think I'm going to be stubborn. I know I'm destined for better. I don't know what that is.